Hello guys, it's Justin, obviously Shock Therapy, and it is Tech Tuesday. It's Tech Tuesday after a very special event in our racing lives. Excuse me. We had a heck of a crash at Parker 250, actually the Shock Therapy Parker 250. You guys probably seen some of the video of that. But I know when this gets edited together and put on YouTube that the guys are probably going to put that video in this right here for you guys to see. But since you've already seen it, most of it, then we're going to talk safety, since all the safety items that are in our car, regulated by Best in Desert and other organizations, are the reason why I'm talking to you today after a roll at 90 miles an hour. So, how it happened. We've got a lot of questions. We try to answer all the comments that everybody's had. So let me try and cover all that in a couple of minutes. First, racing in the 250. We had a belt the first lap, but we were still competitive. Coming into the second lap, we lost power steering, or at least most of it, but we were still in solid second place. So we're kind of nursing that second place finish to the end. Phil Blurton was on a run. There was no way we were going to catch him without power steering at all. And we were just excited to have a second place. But on the straightaway, what do you got, Tony?
We got low audio on Facebook again.
So what do you want to do?
That is the internet connection.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell them to go to YouTube after. So
all right.
put together.
All right. If you guys are on Facebook right now, then go and watch this video on the YouTube channel after we get it edited and put up tonight, maybe tomorrow morning. Okay. Sorry for the sound on YouTube, on Facebook. Go over to Instagram and watch us live. Okay. So, Mitch, you got something else? You good?
Everybody's saying Instagram's good, so we're rocking.
Everybody go over to Instagram, and you'll see it just fine. So we're in a straightaway, pinned. We're on our way from between up from 80, crossing 90 miles an hour, hopefully into 95 and 100. But at 90, then we had a cow jump out right in front of us. Last second, we barely had enough time to go, oh, and that's it, and basically hit this cow head on. The car kind of jumped the cow and sent us for a ride. We don't know how many rolls we hit in there. It was probably between 6 and 8 for sure. But one thing that we did do is afterwards and got out of the car, we walked off that distance between where we hit the cow and where we stopped. And it was about 350 feet. So 90 miles an hour in cartwheels goes about that far. Well, at least we learned something today, or at least at the race. We are fine, as in my brother and I are fine, not even sore, kind of amazed, and we're going to go through all the safety items in the car that led to that being the case. No soreness, number one. Number two, alive and still able to race. So we're happy about that. A lot of people had questions about the cow, Dom, but I think what we can say is this, that it's free range. They can't really pull all the cows off that and get rid of them in advance. They try to, but it's the best they can do. People ask what happens with the cow or happens with us and the cow, how that works. Well, Best in the Desert actually has a meeting with the rancher after the fact, and the rancher and Best in the Desert discuss what the going rate is on beef. And whatever the going rate is on cows at the auction that day, then Best in the Desert actually buys the cow from the rancher. So we heard that, and we told Brian Folks that we'd buy the cow since it was us that hit it. And so that's how that works. About the only thing, though, that we have to show for the cow is we do have a horn. And I'll take you over there and show you the horn. But in observance of the cow and its last moments in life, we'd like to all have a moment of silence for the cow who bit it that day. Everybody, moment of silence. All right, silence is over. What's for lunch, guys? Oh, got some burgers, little steak. Oh, got some carne. All right. I'm going to hop in on that here in 1 second. I'm actually pretty hungry. But let's go over here to the car real fast. And one of the first things that we want to point out when it comes to safety is this chassis is built by Sean Geiser, and it's a chromoly version of the factory frame. And that was our basis for all of the car build after that. And that is number one on our list of how we survive this, is a strong chassis. As you see, we'll go around, walk around the car a little bit, but you see that most of the car is intact, at least on this side. It landed on the other side, and it bounced off the front and the back pretty heavy and ripped a lot of parts off the front and the back. But the cab structure where we are is still perfect. We don't have any bends in the cage tubing. If you look on top, you can see that the roof actually landed sometime throughout all that and bent in the aluminum, but the antenna somehow didn't even get a bend in it, and none of the cage tubes even moved. So that's super important to make sure it doesn't crush in on you when you're rolling. Take a look at the front. Front took some wild hits, and obviously all the bumper assembly got smacked. All the plastics were mostly missing, and the front end has got a pretty good bend in it, but the whole front end right up to the firewall is easily replaceable on this chassis. So literally we can just cut the sucker off right at the firewall and graft on a new front end, which is what our plan is for this. Tony, can you turn the lights on for me? So a couple of really cool things. The car actually still runs. It still drives, although only on a couple of tire drive, one-wheel drive or two-wheel drive, because we lost an axle or two in the flip. But Tony will show you that even all the Baja design lights that are on our front bumper, every single one of these still works. So, I mean, that's a testament to Baja's strength right there, because, 100 mile an hour, 90 miles an hour into the dirt, and they still work. Front end, shocks, everything else is good. Arms on this side, things got the front end's got a tweak to it, but this side blows me away, because this right front corner is what hit that cow head on. And we kind of figured that the whole right front corner be ripped off, but no, it's actually perfectly straight and usable, and we will use it again. Car ended up, after flipping, on the right hand side, and that's why we've got everything pushed in and a lot of the plastics missing off this side. The jack, AGM jack on the back, was part of the yard sale of flipping and having the back rip off the car, spare tire, tools, straps, jack, everything that we have in the back of the car went everywhere. We were able to find the jack, and Dom actually found the battery mechanism that were in two pieces and rewired it, and we had a battery and wires and the AGM jack, and we used it to flip the car back over, kind of working it up and throw a tire in there a little higher until we were able to flip it back over. So that AGM still held up. Give them props for making strong stuff. On the back of the car, you can see here's what's left of the rear bumper. Rear bumper and tire carrier obviously took a massive hit. It probably hit 2 or 3 times during that run, and it ripped off, but it's kind of what it's supposed to do. Once that is removed, then you're back down to the chromoly chassis, and you can see, oh, here's our horn left over. I'll go into that here in a second. But the actual chassis itself is still intact. Rear radius rod plate still intact. Motor and tranny is just fine. As a matter of fact, hey, Tony, fire this thing up. So it still runs. Kind of amazing. If it wasn't for some missing axles, then we could have driven it back, or at least nursed it back, but we ended up getting towed back. And the guys that towed us from Best in the Desert, they're badass. Massive props to you guys. Volunteers kick ass for Best in Desert. Other things on here, you can see this shock is ripped into 2 pieces, and the sway bar is pulled out of the frame. And you can also see that these radius rods on this back corner are bent. They're also dented. So what we think happened is that this was dirt that came in once this cage was missing. This is actually the fuel vent for the fuel cell, which is normally attached to that cage piece. But we're pretty sure that this was actually dirt and rocks that came in here and bent this up. And when the tire was on it, the car, say, the back of the car right here, flying through the air, we think that left rear tire hit the ground like this and tried to pull the tire downward, or basically rip the arm off the car that direction, because it bent the hardware that holds our limit strap, it cut the strap, and then it ripped the shaft out of the shock, and it pulled the axle out of the stub. So that was one reason why we didn't have all-wheel drive in the back. We just had one tire. Obviously the aluminum in the back got crushed, but that's just part of it. No damage past the cage itself. Nothing below that tube has an issue. Radiator and fans are still fine. So what walking around this thing, you can't say enough about how the cage construction held up, how the chassis construction held up, and saved us in a 90-mile-an-hour roll. Best in the Desert calls out the size of tubing and wall thickness and locations for gussets and locations for A, B, and C pillars and things like that. And they do it for a reason, because they've seen a lot more crashes than any of us have. And they make sure that the car is safe. Definitely is, for sure. You guys got any questions on any of that stuff? Nothing so far?
No questions, yeah, just a lot of jokes about cows and thanking God you're okay and all that good stuff.
I do want to mention something. Thank you guys for the outreach of support. Everybody making sure that we are okay. That's just overwhelmingly the majority of comments that we got. We want to say thank you guys for that. Really appreciate it. Had a lot of phone calls from a lot of people the last couple of days checking on us, and we love the community, and thank you very much for checking in. Mitch.
Alex wants to know who built the chassis. Sorry, I missed that part.
So Sean Geyser Performance, built the actual basics of the frame. We did the roll cage and accessories on the outside of that. Yes, Mitch.
What harnesses and seats are you guys using?
Excellent question. Segue into where I was going next. But if you want to show inside the car, you can see that the seats that we run are made by PRP. They're a full surround seat with shoulder supports. This is important because when you're going through a roll like we did, then these shoulder supports are keeping their upper torso from sliding sideways in the seat and ending up bouncing off the cage somehow on your arms or on your shoulders. So that wrap is very important. Also, we run PRP seat belts, safety harnesses, and the straps that we run are built for a neck restraint. I'll show you the neck restraint in a second, where there's no padding at the top because that is sitting on top of the neck restraint. But we do always run pads on the front. If you don't run neck restraints, you want to make sure that pads are on the top of the belt so that it doesn't have a straight strap only on your collarbone if you end up on your lid. These style of strap are a pull-up strap. This is very important. If you can see down inside here, the tension for the lap belt, this portion right here, you literally yank upward to tighten that belt. And the reason that's important is because once you pull the strap over, it's very hard to get down low enough between the seat and the console or the side of the car and pull the straps down, so you never get the lap belt tight enough. That's number one on holding you in the car. So we do an upward strap so that once it's tight, we can yank on that thing and really pull it down tight. If your lap is tight in the seat, everything else works perfect. You always do that lower first, and then last you do the shoulder harnesses. What you don't want to do is put the lap on, have it loose, and then tighten the harnesses and pull that up here in your stomach. Then your lower torso can wiggle around inside the seat. Your whole body can go forward towards the dash. Even with a crotch strap, if that lap belt is still loose, it will be a problem. And also, it probably castrates you on the cross strap, and your wife's going to be pissed off for the rest of your life. Dom.
Mr. Frank Wagner is asking, how are your seats mounted?
So our seats are solid mounted to the chassis. There is no seat slider in the car. That is by rule for Best in the Desert. That solid mount is very important so the seat never moves. And if you look in the video, you'll see there's no wiggle in the seat in any direction because of that. Now, you can do a mechanical slider. They do offer, or they do allow it in the rules, but we don't suggest it because any moving parts can fail, and it's a lot better just to have that solid system so that seat doesn't leave the car with you in it. So seats, belts, helmet. We run an impact carbon fiber helmet. These are very expensive. You guys don't nearly have to go this far, but there's a lot of good helmets out there, and this is super important that you're protecting your noggin. We run an impact, and we run it in carbon because of the weight. And when you're in the car for hours and hours on end, then the weight of that helmet wears on your neck. And bouncing around just a little bit here and there, it's a big difference between 5 pounds on your head and 3 pounds on your head, especially if you're pre-running in Mexico and you're doing it for days on end. You really need to have a lightweight helmet. It helps a lot. Neck restraint. This is required by rule by Best in Desert and Score, but this neck restraint is held by the seat belt. It's similar to a Hans device. It works very much the same, but basically you have some movement in your head a little bit until you hit something, say head on or bounce off, and as your head goes forward in a wreck, then these tethers keep your head from trying to two-piece your neck. Also, when you go sideways, it restrains it one direction, the other direction, so you don't have that whiplash of the wreck translating into your neck. So my neck isn't even sore after that roll, and I attribute that to two things. One, the seats and the belts working and doing their job, keeping you inside the seat tightly. Second, that next gen head restraint, keeping your head and neck from moving too far, stretching things or breaking things. So that's super important. Anything, you guys?
I have my own question.
What's that?
I have my own question.
What do you got?
So even though you had a violent crash like that, would you replace the next gen and be like, well, that's just, it been through a lot?
So great question. What we will do on all of this is we don't have to replace the next gen main bracketry that's sitting on your shoulder, but what you want to replace is all of the tether mounts, because these things are designed to stretch. And the reason they're designed to stretch is so you don't have a violent bang and instant stoppage. It kind of goes and slows down slowly. Well, now it's already stretched. It's not going to have that play in it next time to slow things down microscopically slower at the end. Same with seat belts. The seat belts have now done their job. They have held us in the car. They have stretched. Now they're not going to have that give on the next wreck. They're going to stop too quickly, which can also break internal parts. I mean, it break collarbones and things like that. So we'll be replacing the seat belts in the car. We'll be replacing the straps on the next gen. All those items right there are definitely something you don't want to run twice. If you take a look right here is PRP box with all the seatbelt stuff in it. Oh, and we have Betsy's horn. Let me tell you a little bit about this. So when we came to a stop and we hopped out and we're kind of assessing the yard sale, about 30 feet away from the car, which keep in mind is about 350 feet away from the cow, this was sitting in the desert. And so we didn't really know if it was sitting there for another reason or if it was from us, but we found out that this was actually from the cow that we hit, and it traveled either in the car or with the car 350 feet. So this is our souvenir from that one, as well as lunch that Dom's cooking right now. Nah, it's not, I'm just kidding. We didn't take the cow away. Cow was actually out there. The cow was blocking the road, and a lot of other UTVs were coming through and gonna hit it. My brother was pushing people out of the way or pushing all the cars around the cow to get around. And then we actually had to take some time and move the cow off the course because it's becoming dangerous. So we took a tow strap and wrapped it around the rear hoofs, and 4 of us yanked on that and tried to get it up the embankment, which was next to impossible. We think that cow weighed about 600 or 700 pounds, I would say, somewhere around there. But eventually we kind of dug the embankment out and got it up a little at a time, up and over out of the course and off to the side. So some of the people that came by early had to drive around it, and some people that came by later got to see it as they flew by. But at least it wasn't in the way. Sometimes there are people trying to pass each other, and one checks up for the cow, the other one didn't know. So that was becoming dangerous, so we moved the cow.
Back
Dom,
to the seatbelts, there's a question. Yeah. Is it a 4-point or a 5-point harness required?
Okay, it's 5-point. 5-point meaning you've got 1 on each shoulder, 2, 3, 4, and the crotch strap is 5. So you have to have a 5-point in racing. If you have a system without a crotch strap, then what happens if you hit a head-on collision, then your whole body slides underneath the straps forward, your knees hit the dash, you end up crushing parts because you slide right out of the seatbelt. So you have to have a crotch strap in any of this stuff. Also, the crotch strap, if it's adjusted properly, will keep the lap belt low and tight and keep it from rising up if you accidentally tighten all your shoulder harnesses a little bit too early. So there is a procedure there and you need to follow it. It's lap belt, crotch strap adjusted properly, and shoulder harnesses last. Mitch.
The Misfit 27 said, saw a lot of comments saying you should have let go of the steering wheel in a roll. Do you agree?
I agree with taking your hands off the steering wheel if you're in oval racing, a NASCAR or IndyCar, because you're hitting basically a concrete wall or a safer barrier that no matter what is at an angle, and it's going to turn the front tire one direction or another or rip the wheel out of your hand, which can break your fingers. In off-road, I've never seen a wheel rip out of my hand in any kind of a wreck or anything. I don't drive with my thumbs in any way, and if you look at the video, you'll see I'm holding on but thumbs up. So if it did rip out, and at one point I did lose one hand, put it right back on. I think holding onto the wheel and off-road is probably better than trying to do something else and reach over here and grab your belt. One or the other I'm okay with. I think it's an opinion piece, but you guys go crash some stuff at 90 and tell me what you think.
What was your first thought after getting out of the car and knowing you were okay?
My first thought was, because I knew I was okay, like standing up and checking all your parts, and I knew my brother was okay because he already told me and he had run back over to the cow. My first thought was, is the car leaking anything that could catch fire? Because now that we're out of the car, I mean, we could be away from it 10 minutes later and have the thing catch and not know. So checking for that. And the second thing was, is the cow in the race course? Because the next car coming through is going to plow into it and we're going to have more accidents. So we ran back over to the course to kind of assess that. And my brother had the triangles out and he was standing there the whole time to flag people around it until we moved the cow. So that was kind of the direction we went. Mitch?
It's actually a pretty good question. Jay Hubs wants to know, does Best in the Desert inspect after a wreck like that to make improvements to the chassis?
Yes and no. So I've already gotten a phone call from Tech Director Alan Rudd to check, number one, to see if we're okay. Number two, talk about how the car was, and maybe we could send him pictures. So once we get the car stripped, which is after this live feed, we'll have it stripped and on the table, probably completely assessed tomorrow. We'll probably send Alan some pictures so he can see what happened, where the damage was, and what we're doing to repair it. I'm sure Alan will take that information and go right into the rules for next year, or even make an addendum for right away if it's needed. I think that the way the system is working now works, so it probably won't happen. But when we are done with the car, it's going to get a full frame inspection again. It has to get recerted and retagged, and Best in Desert will do that as well as SCORE. Tony, what do you got?
Bill Wyko wants to know if you get to keep the roadkill.
So I'm sure we could, because I mean we're paying for it, but it's a little late now, and I don't know if I would want to keep it after a day or two. So I just don't see how you can take the cow with you unless you got a bunch of trucks that day. But I'm sure they'd let you. Someone's paying for it, might as well.
Cameron Condra is asking, is the car totaled or frame totaled?
So the car is not totaled. We will be repairing this. The frame, it depends on what you consider totaled. The cab and driver compartment area is fine, and all we have to do is graft on a new front end. That's done all the time in trophy truck world. Nobody wants to build a whole new truck or a whole new race car if they don't have to. We're pretty sure we're going to be able to put a front end on this and do some aluminum panels, and this thing's back running. So it won't happen between now and the next race in Laughlin. That's only 30 days. So we're going to be running another car at the next race, and if we're not done for the Mint, then we'll run another car for one more race. But in the next month or two, we'll be fixed. That's for sure. You guys good? More safety stuff that's on here. So we've already talked about the chassis from Geyser. We've talked about PRP seats and belts. Thank you, PRP. Impact helmets, which we get impact helmets, and we get all of our next gen stuff from PCI Race Radios. If you guys want to, talk to them about the options there. You can get different intercom and earpieces inside them too. Method wheels and Tensor tires. One thing that was incredible after all this rolling is we still had all four wheels and tires on the car. Nothing bent or broken, even though that left rear corner hit the ground so hard that it ripped the shock and limit strap apart and bent all the radius rods in the rear. Wheels and tires were still intact, so we love our Method wheels and Tensor tires, that's for sure. Window nets. Our window nets are made by Hostel. Dom's got one in his hand right now. These are very important because like someone had said, do we agree with holding onto the steering wheel in a roll? If you don't and you miss your seat belts, then your arms are going to flail around inside the car. And if your arms flail around too far, then obviously you're going to lose an arm out the window, and the car will land on it and cut your arm off. So window nets are super, super important if you're not wearing wrist restraints. We prefer to have no wrist restraints so we can grab anything on the dash and adjust things, and have a window net to keep your hands from going outside and your arms from going outside the car. So window net's badass. Ours are made by Hostel. Padding in the cab, super important. Take a look inside. If you, number one, you got a steering wheel, right? But your legs and your knees are sitting right around the steering column. So some of the things that are really important, especially on the passenger side where you've got a really long tube and dash piece, is that underneath everything is 100% padded. So we've got like cage foam glued to the inside underneath the dash across those tubes. We've got them on the steering column as well, up inside. So when your legs are bouncing around uncontrollably, your knees aren't getting cut up, which I had happen in Baja when we had a head-on collision with a local car on the race course. When we hit head-on, my right knee flew up and forward into a portion of the dash that held the radio, and the corner of the radio split my knee and cut a tendon. So you really want to make sure anything that your legs can hit is covered with padding every single time. Mitch?
I got two things, and one of them, there's a lot of cow jokes going on, but this one was actually pretty good. Mike said, y'all need to name that section of the course the Cowabunga Straight.
Cowabunga Straight. I heard some good dad jokes the other day. Why did the cow cross the race course?
So Justin can jump it.
To get to the other side.
Other side, yeah.
Which that's really bad.
I got another really good question
yeah.
too from Hardwired Performance. Being in the electrical / wiring industry, do you guys run any fail-safes for items like ignition or fuel pumps in the case of a roll, or do you rely on the driver / co-driver shutting systems down?
So I will tell you that everything shuts itself off. We can't rely on drivers and co-drivers because you could be knocked out. And Tony does not have a mic on. Otherwise, I think Tony should be answering this. So Tony, speak into the mic.
Right.
But well, tell everybody how the system works and how it shuts everything off.
So if it's
In like 50 words or less.
right.
Yeah.
So if it does see, if the fuel pumps are over, it will shut off mechanically that way, or just a button, or even just a simple big battery shut off switch also.
Louder. No mic. You got to talk. You got to speak up.
Anybody hear that? Or is it- So yes, there are fail-safe systems in there with the battery shut-off switches and everything that will shut it down if you need to, or by itself.
Yeah, the last thing you want to do is be knocked out cold and have the fuel pump still running. Feeding a fire, last thing you want to do. So as I'm walking around the car a little bit more, if you guys have any questions about any of this, and Mitch does. What do you got, Mitch?
Why no intrusion bars? Could have been wearing cow.
Very true. So I'll tell you why. We were trying to keep the car light, and normally all of our race cars have intrusion bars, and those are also known as cow bars for a reason, to keep the cow out. I opted personally to leave the tubes out and save the weight. We're really trying to knock it all down when we built this car, because we knew we were going to be racing best in the desert and north of the border. In Mexico, way more cows, bigger issue. Cows aren't normally an issue up here, and guess what? We ran into it, and I should have had an intrusion bar, and we will be putting one in it going forward. Just didn't think it was going to happen in Best in Desert, but it did. Mitch?
Anything on the car that surprised you because it still worked?
Yes, that right front corner. I mean, you guys, look at that video in slow motion. How is all of this front end still on the car? I don't even understand how that still is there after being the thing that took the cow head on. We do think, after staring at it quite a bit, if you look at this little skid plate, that pretty much was the horn and the cow's head that dented that. It certainly wasn't the dirt. And so the body took the arms and the front tire. And I thought when we were flying through the air, it occurred to me that the right front corner is completely going to be missing off the car when we stop. I don't know why I thought that, but it ran through my mind. And then to see that it's actually not even bent, crazy, right? Really, really strong parts from Sean Geiser, so highly recommended if you guys are thinking of doing something. Unbelievable. The other thing, engine trans being fine, everything runs electrically, everything still works. You know, yeah, we ripped some parts off the front and the back, but that's kind of meant to happen. Have some things blow off and save the central cab to do the projection job, right? Mitch, you got more stuff?
One more. Keaton Wade wants to know, did you have any time to react and hit the brakes?
I didn't have that much time, but if you look at the video, you'll see the camera actually drops. That is hitting the brakes. So it was like a millisecond, you could see something dark. Another millisecond, you could see the head pop out, and that's when my brother goes, oh! And at that very second, I tried to hit the pedal, and I barely got it before we hit the cow. That section of the course is single lane, and it's 2-foot berm on each side, burned in. So there was no way to drive around it, and I don't think that there was any way to even put input in the steering wheel. Hitting the brakes was barely good enough. Dom.
Kevin Garriga says you should have steer cleared.
Steer cleared. That's excellent. Yeah, I like that one. Good joke. You guys, any more dad jokes? That's good. Keep sending it. It's all I gotta say. I mean, really, I wanted to point out everything that was on it. Mitch.
If the cow would have survived, do you think he would have needed shock therapy?
Yeah. He needed a lot more. Trust me. He was kind of wound up into a pretzel. But we don't want to talk too much about that. Mitch, what else?
Any air footage? Did we get any footage from the helicopter? There's a couple questions about that.
Yeah, so the answer is no, and Dom will tell you why. Dom?
So, as everyone in that section, mile marker 74, is doing about 75, 80, 90 miles an hour, we're doing the math. We needed to go get the guy in first place, Mr. Phil Blurton, congratulations. So we were filming him for about 5 minutes, doing more math, saying, all right, well, they're doing this speed, we need to get to the podium, we're gonna go land, drive to the finish line. As we were leaving to go to the finish line, we just hear Jason, Justin's brother, so nonchalantly, hey guys, we hit a cow doing 90, rolled about 10 times, and that just like caught us off guard. We're like, excuse me, I just said on the radio, what? And yeah, we hit a cow doing 90, rolled 10 times, and the rest is history. We went there, landed, everyone's okay, thank God. The car did its job, all the safety stuff did its job. Everyone that put their hands on this deserves a big hug.
Yeah, big time. We'll be going to dinner to thank everybody that's touched this car for keeping us alive, that's for sure. Tony? Hey, Tony. Yeah. No, there's one of the people
great
right
job,
there.
Tony.
Thank you very much, Tony. I enjoy still breathing.
And I was about 20 miles away, and the car was upside down, and the radio still worked.
Yeah,
thanks, PCI.
PCI for exactly. Shameless plug, but helmets, next gen, and radios, pretty badass in this situation. So I would suggest it even if you have a play car. If you guys are trying to, Ricky Bobby around with your friends, an accident can happen anytime, and you really need to be prepared for it. So safety first. We've said it in many videos. Safety is the first thing. Stereos are last, and chrome everything somewhere in the middle of that. If it's too slow, chrome it. Right? Jordan, thanks for working on the car. No welds failed. You rock. I enjoy my life because of you. Thank you. You guys got any more questions? Otherwise, yes, Mitch.
One more.
Yeah.
Are there any additional safety measures you will take from now on?
What's that?
Intrusion bars.
Yeah, you're right. We're going to put a cow bar on the window just in case. I don't think there's anything else that we could have done to make it any better. Maybe cow radar. That would be about the only thing.
Do you think the little deer horns would have worked for the cow to steer clear? Like little deer, you buy them at the store, you'd mount them on the car and they'd keep the deer away?
I don't know, man. I think what we're going to do going on in the future is we're going to mount the horn to the car, and the car's new nickname for the rest of the year is Steak Knife.
Steak knife.
Yes, that's what we've decided upon. But if that's it, then we're going to sign out. You guys good?
All good. Yeah.
All right. Well, then I'm going to enjoy some lunch. That looks like a pretty sweet steak. Thank you very much, Tom. Appreciate you cooking all that. Hey, you guys, if you would like To order any of our parts, components, things like that, then go to our website, shocktherapyusa.com, or give us a call, 623-217-4959. You have a great week. We will see you on Thursday for Throw It Out There Thursday. See ya.